Welcome back to the Photoshop Basics for Scrapbooking class. In today's lesson, we are diving into the last of our advanced photo editing lessons, where I'm going to be teaching you how to use 3 different tools: the blur tool, the smudge tool, and the clone tool. These are all 3 different kinds of tools that can help you alter pieces of your photo to make things either more in focus or out of focus or completely removed altogether. This is a tool that I use especially when I am trying to smudge out my text, when I'm sharing maybe a layout on Instagram where I don't want people to read my journaling, but I still want them to know that there's journaling there. This tool is, or one of these tools, is the way that I make that happen. And the clone tool is also a really great one for helping you alter the background of your photo to help get rid of things that you don't necessarily want in your photo. So let's head over to the computer and I'm going to show you how to use all 3 of these tools in both Photoshop Creative Cloud and Photoshop Elements. All right, friends, welcome back over here to my desktop. Same as always, we are beginning today inside of Photoshop Creative Cloud, and then once I show you everything here, we'll switch over to Elements and do the same process inside of that program. I've already pulled up the 2 photos that I want to work with today. The first one being this flat lay that I did, a flat lay photo of one of my one little word layouts. And I pulled this one up specifically to show you how I use the smudge tool to make my text unreadable. Then I've also pulled up a photo of my son Jonah at my sister's wedding. This was a picture that was taken by their wedding photographer. And in this one, I'm going to show you how I use the clone tool to get rid of unwanted pieces, unwanted images inside of my photo. So these 2 random people back here, I'm going to show you how I can get rid of them using the clone tool. So let's start with the flat lay spread of my layout for one little word. So the 3 tools that we're going to be using today are all located inside of the toolbar on the left-hand side. The tool that is most likely visible for you looks like a little raindrop, and that one is the blur tool. This one let's talk about first. So the blur tool is actually one that's going to work very similar to the dodge tool that we did yesterday, where you can add layers of blur on top of your photo. So for example, let's say that I want to blur out maybe my cat picture or my cat sticker right here. So if I were to click and drag and just kind of paint on top of that sticker, it's going to blur everything up. It's also going to blur the background as well. Let me zoom in here so you can see. So this background portion had these little dots on it, and the more I am blurring it, the more it's getting rid of the definition on that background as well. The blur tool for me is not necessarily the one I use to hide any of my journaling, my text, because it doesn't really, it doesn't obscure the text, it just makes it more faded. So you're still going to be able to read the words on my page if you really want to when I'm using the blur tool. So this one is not necessarily what I would recommend for that type of action. Instead, we're going to use the smudge tool. So if we click and hold on top of the blur tool, there is sharpen and there is smudge. Oh, and it looks like I lied, but one of the tools is in a different spot. It's still in the left-hand toolbar, but not in this submenu. So the smudge tool looks like a finger that's sliding on a surface. So that's the one that I want to select. Similar to the dodge tool that we talked about yesterday, you can increase or decrease the size of your quote-unquote brush if you use those bracket keys on your keyboard. So the right bracket will increase it and the left bracket will decrease it. When I am using this tool to help me blur out my text, I generally make the circle of my brush the same size as the words or the text that I'm trying to smudge up on my layout. For this one, I have my strength set to about 56%. That's just kind of that doesn't matter totally. Like I could do 50%. That's probably an easier number. So 50% normal mode. And then all we're going to do is click and drag the line of text. And you can see that it smudges it so much so that it is not legible. You cannot read what this says anymore. So this is a great way for me to still include photos or images of my layouts on social media without sharing my actual words. So I can do the same thing up here. I could smudge this up. The more layers or times that you go over top of the section, the more smudged it gets. So if one swipe across isn't quite enough, you can go back across, and that should do it for you. So if we now zoom out of this page and bring it back to fit on the screen, you can see what an effect that has in terms of the area that I am smudging. You can do this to other parts of your layout as well. I don't ever find a need to do that, but maybe, I don't know, maybe, yeah, that just looks weird. So no, I don't think I would use it anywhere else, but it's definitely a perfect tool to use for smudging out your text. All right, so the last tool that we're going to talk about today is called the clone tool. So again, it's going to be in the left side of your screen here. And this one's going to look like a stamp. You can see how, and it actually is the clone stamp tool. I just call it the clone tool. Okay, so again, you can increase the size with your two brackets, increase or decrease. For this one, I am going to increase it a little bit here. And the way that this is going to work is you are going to select an area of your photo by holding down the Alt key. When you hold down the Alt key, you're going to get this little icon that looks kind of like a bullseye. You can click on your screen, and now my clone tool has picked up this area inside the big circle as the part of my photo that I want to replicate somewhere else. If I now drag this, you can see how the bushes and the dirt are appearing in other places on my photo. So for this one, what I'm going to do is I'm going to line this up on top of where the people are that I want to cover up. And I'm just going to add the bushes on top of them. So I'm going to do this again. And I'll show you why here in just a second. So I'm going to go ahead and click this area again, and I'm going to clone on top of the dude here. Okay, I'm just clicking as I go. And then I probably need like one more section. Maybe I'll come over here just to give me a little bit more variability. I might decrease the size of this so I can get closer to the tree without getting rid of the tree. And now we're getting, okay, there's this sharp edge that you can see there at the top. So what I'm going to do to get rid of that is to just click inside of the greenery there, and then we're going to add this on top of where that sharp edge was. And that takes care of that. So now my people, those random people, are no longer in this photo. Does it look perfect in terms of its definition in the background? No, but nobody's really going to be looking at that when they look at this photo. It's really going to be more about my son, who is bringing the ring down the aisle for my sister's wedding. So just a really easy way to get rid of unwanted objects in your photo. One thing I will mention about the clone tool is when you pick up a spot, let's say we're picking up this spot right here. Actually, let's just do this. So we're going to pick up this little area right here, everything inside my circle. When I add it, you see that there's going to be that straight edge, which is because I picked up an area where part of my circle was outside of my photo. So it is literally getting that exact same spot. If I click and drag to the right, it's literally going to clone that entire row from the point that I clicked to the right, right? So if I click and drag again, it's going to be the same thing again, right? So it's just giving me any from the point where I clicked to the right of that spot. Now, same goes for vertically. So if I click and drag down, it's going, let's get a section next to my son so you can see this a little bit better. So let's grab like right here where you can see his head. Okay, so if I click and drag down, you're going to get everything in that column. Same if I go up, it'll clone everything from him up until the point where you meet the edge of the photo. So the reason why that's going to be important is, let me bring these people back into the picture here. Is that it? Okay, yes. So if I were to pick up this spot right here, right next to this woman, and then if I put that on top of her and I drag to the right, it's going to actually move her on top of where that dude is. Does that make sense? So you want to select an area that's far enough away if you want to drag to the right, where, and that's, I actually need to come down here, maybe more like here. So you need to get a spot that's a little bit further away so that when you drag to the right, you're going to cover up the entire image. Or in the case of this photo, if I'm grabbing, let's say right here, right next to her, I'm just going to work on covering her up this time just by clicking over top of her. And now when I select this spot to clone, it's going to clone, again, everything to the right. So it's not going to have the woman in there anymore, but it still has the man. So now I can use that. Let's go ahead and do this. I can use that spot. Nope, I need further down, as my section to then cover up this man. Right? And then earlier, all that I did, it was reduce the size so I can get closer to the tree without getting rid of the tree, because the tree, or at least trying my best. And then at the top, I can just click anywhere in that green and fill that in at the top to get rid of that straight edge line. So that is the clone tool, and the primary reason why I use it. It is a little bit finicky, meaning it does take some practice to figure out exactly where to select and how much to drag and all of that. But it's definitely a tool I highly recommend getting to know a little bit more, because it's so helpful for doing exactly what I just did, taking unwanted objects out of your photo. So those are the 3 tools inside of Creative Cloud. Let's switch over to Elements and do the exact same thing. So here is that photo of the flat lay. For this one, you have that same little, it looks like a little water drop tool for blur. For this one, you can increase your size down here at the bottom using the size slider, or you can again use the brackets to make it even bigger. This does the same thing. Where is my strength? Yep, it does the same thing. So it's going to blur out that image the more. And I'm just clicking and dragging and releasing, clicking and dragging and releasing, and just adding layers upon layers of blur on top of my image. If you want the blur to be stronger, let's get back to the beginning here, then you can increase the strength down in this strength slider, and then that will help to blur it quicker, if that makes sense. Okay, so that is the blur tool. In the blur tool here, the submenu is back down at the bottom again. This time I'm going to click on the smudge tool. So this is the one that looks like the finger dragging across a surface. And then for this one, let's zoom in a little bit, just because it's easier to smudge it out when I'm up close to the text. Okay, so let's go back to the smudge tool. This one, I want to increase the size because it's pretty small. I've got my strength set to 50%, which is the same that it was before. And then I can just click and drag over top of the text that I do not want anyone to read. So there's that one, or we could go over here to my written text and we can do it here as well. Right, so just getting rid of or smudging out whatever you don't want to be visible. Let's bring this back to fit on the screen, and there you can see it from a bird's eye view. Okay, so that is the smudge tool and the blur tool. The last one here is the same one, the clone tool. So the clone tool again looks like a stamp here. You can increase or decrease the size using the brackets or the slider. So I'm going to bring this up real big. And then this one works the exact same way. So you're going to hold the Alt key, you get the little bullseye, click on the screen to select your area, and then you can bring that on top of the section that you want to get rid of. And just kind of click. So you can either, sometimes I like to just click places and then move and click again. And then other times I like to click and drag. Like, I feel like this needs more of that dirt looking stuff at the bottom. Yeah, that's better. Okay, so I want to reduce the size a bit here and pick up another spot just so I can get in here close to that tree. And then I'm going to grab up in here so I can fill in the top section and get rid of the harsh line. This is also looking a little weird because it's all faded, so I'm just going to get rid of that. Okay, so there we go. So there's the clone tool inside of Photoshop Elements. Again, I didn't do a perfect job because there's a little bit of fuzziness on the outside of that tree, which does look weird, but with a little bit more precision and playing around with the size of my brush, I could totally make that look better if I wanted to. So friends, that is the clone tool and the blur tool and the smudge tool. This is the last lesson inside of our advanced photo editing portion of the photography topics is what I'm trying to say, I suppose. Next week, we're going to start working on some more quote unquote scrapbooky types of actions that we can do with photos inside of Photoshop. We're going to kick it off by learning how to put white borders around our photos. That is what I have in store for us next week. Until then, I would love for you guys to play around with these three tools. So pick a photo that has a background where you can try to take an object out of the background and play around with the clone tool. I feel like that is the one that needs the most practice, but also play around with the smudge tool. See if you can take a picture of something with writing on it and smudge the writing out so that you have that tool in your arsenal for when you are posting on social media, if that's something that you do. Alrighty. Well, I will be back here next week again with another Photoshop tutorial. Until then, have a great rest of your day, friends, and I'll catch you in